Good evening. Welcome to our Wednesday night Bible study here at Bible Baptist Church. We're here in the auditorium with a limited number of people to join us. We are practicing our social distancing around the property this evening, but it's nice to have some people inside the room as well. And for those of you still joining us, I'll try to make sure I look at you as well. All right. We're in, believe it or not, Proverbs chapter 31, if you want to go ahead and turn over there. And right now, somebody somewhere is supposed to be thinking, whoa, time out. I thought we were in the book of Kings. And yes, we are, but we're doing it in Proverbs 31 tonight. Since I got people here, I can ask the question, what did we talk about last week, or did you not watch? There we go. We were talking about the last words of David, famous last words. And on top of it, we were talking about the advice that he had given to Solomon before he passed away. All right, how you want to remember. Those are the things we were looking at. So I thought, in doing that I thought for me that it would be a good idea, if I'm going to take a look at David's last words, shouldn't I take a look at what Bathsheba had to say to Solomon too? And that's kind of the way I looked at it. I mean, Solomon's about to become king, or he has become king from where we were. Do you not think Mom had something to say about it? Do you not think she had some advice? So I'm going to talk in Proverbs 31 about what I believe is the advice that Bathsheba gave to Solomon. Now, if you go to chapter 31 of Proverbs, it starts off with the words of King Lemuel, and you say, that's not Solomon. You're right, I don't know for a fact it is. I cannot guarantee you, doing some research this week, one site said that they thought it could possibly be Hezekiah. Another one actually attributed it to a prince who was a descendant of Ishmael. I can't tell you what's right. I think it makes sense, and I think that there's probably the best chance that it is Solomon who's written here. When you look at the names, I mean, Solomon was also called Jedediah by Nathan. That means loved of the Lord. Here we have the word Lemuel, which means belonging to God. I kind of like the comparison of those two. Now, you say, well, if it was Solomon, why didn't they just say Solomon? Well, let me ask you a question. How many different names do you go by? Just one? Nobody ever calls you anything else? Not anymore? Okay, I had a college professor, and I'm sorry if you can't hear the banter in the crowd, that's okay. I had a college professor, and I was scared of Mr. Sherwin. Mr. Sherwin was like 6'3". He was a nice guy, he was my biology teacher. And on the first day of class, he went, well, hello, Bill. And I went, hello. Didn't have whatever to say, I'm not Bill. Bill's my dad. My name's Will. Okay? It was my freshman year of college. I was still going by Willie at that time. My brother to this day, I'm 51 years old, my brother still calls me Willie. All right, so does my mom and dad on occasion, and my sister. You know, I prefer to be called Will. When people are mad at me, they call me William. All right, if I put my handle out there when I do it for, something like my gamer tag, it's like Dr. Willie B. So I go by a lot of different names. So I don't have a problem with the fact that with an interpretation of what names mean, that this name could be signifying something special. So if I'm wrong, I'll ask the Lord to forgive me if I'm telling you I'm off on it. But I believe that this is Solomon. It says, the words of King Solomon, the prophecy that his mother taught him, what my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows, give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. Just out of curiosity, what was the advice that David gave to Solomon when he died? Keep God's statutes, keep God's judgments, keep God's commandments, keep his ways, walk in them, follow after them. It was a very, I hate to use the word, but it's the one that comes to mind. It was a very religious charge, if you will, correct? As I look as far as what Bathsheba says, I kind of see the opposite aspect of it. She gives him a very practical charge, as I believe he's becoming king. This, again, go ahead and let me have my delusions if you think I'm wrong. It's okay. I think Solomon is writing this later in life, looking back. But at the same time, I think these are things that Bathsheba had taught him up until the time and right when he became king. And she says, if you look at it, verse 3, give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. We pause right there, and she has probably one of the best warnings to give to Solomon, both religiously and politically, if you ask me. And that is, you need to watch out for the things that destroy men in leadership, that destroy women in leadership. If somebody's in a leadership position, there's always something out there to try and take them down, yes? How many times, and don't tell me, that we don't love a good scandal? Yes? We just love to hear what's the latest gossip. You know what I'm saying? Oh, did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear what they did? I mean, forgive me, the political universe is all abuzz about that all the time. And we fall right into the trap, don't we? Don't think it was any different back then. And she's given Solomon a warning. You need to be careful of those things that will destroy your testimony in leadership. As we read on, let's go to verse 4. It said, it is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes to drink strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law, and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. I don't want to open it up and sit here and talk about whether or not somebody thinks alcohol is okay, whether or not alcohol is not okay. I don't really want to get to that. I want to focus in on what she's saying to Solomon. And here's basically what she's saying. And we know it's true today, don't we? What does alcohol do to your judgment? Remember how we talked about famous last words last week? Famous last words. Hold my beer and watch this. Ask what happens to a person who's driving drunk, just how good their judgment is out on the road, or on a boat, or on a four-wheeler, or anywhere else. Did you see the one, and I don't know if this was alcohol related, but I don't remember, this was a country out in, I think this was over in Eastern Europe. The lady who was out hiking and wanted to get a selfie on a mountaintop, and so what did she do? She fell off. There's just a part of me that thinks alcohol had to be involved some way, shape, or form, because I have been on my roof at my house, and it's all of an 8-foot drop on the end. And I can tell you right now, I get freaked out just getting close, especially since I got the new metal roof, and I feel like my shoes want to slip on it a little bit more. It makes me nervous, and that's 8 feet. I can't imagine these people who get up there, and they're sitting on mountains 100 feet up, and they just walk up to the edge and look over, or step to the side, and it's like, you're stupid. People who have climbing gear and understand and have been trained, I get that. But the average person, don't get it. Just don't get it. And she's saying, you need to be careful about things that impair your judgment. By the way, if you go back into verse 3, do you know what else impairs judgment? The people you hang around. I'll more generalize it because I think we're trying to learn stuff for us today, right? What do we learn from it? I learned a quote, I don't think I mentioned it last week, but when I was studying for last week's, one of the things that I read that this one guy had said, and it was a pretty good one, is you're the average of your 5 closest friends. When it comes to your character and the person that you are, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. Because most people are going to have friends, let's put it spiritually for a moment. You're going to have friends who are more spiritual than you, and sorry to say, you're going to have friends that are not quite as spiritual as you, and so realistically, you're kind of in the middle. That's actually good mathematics and statistics. I kind of like that when I saw it, because, the math teacher in me was like, wow, that's cool. I like that one. Sorry. Should have done that before we started. But you think about the things that are going to pervert judgment. What's going to skew your judgment? We have strong drink that is specifically mentioned, and we have the people you hang around. And for Solomon, it was specifically women. We'll come back to that towards the end. What other advice did Bathsheba have that we can learn today as we just think about the advice that we pass on, the advice we should take? Let's take a look in verse 8. It says, "Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." We see it in today's society, don't we? If you got money, what happens when you get in trouble? Affluenza, yes, I got a bad case of affluenza, so therefore you have to let me go. Oh, yeah. And his life took a tragic turn afterwards. You are correct. But you think about it. In today's society, how many people who have money, who have influence, get away with, at the worst, a little slap on the wrist until it's just something huge? You know, how long did Bernie Madoff get away with stuff until such time as the whole Ponzi scheme came crashing down, right? Trying to think of that other guy in West Palm Beach who I think he eventually killed himself in jail. Epstein, yeah, that's right. How much stuff did he get away with? He was under house arrest, and yet he was going to work every day. Yeah, that's really house arrest, right? You think about it. I'm watching the stuff on the news, and it kind of just makes me, it makes me laugh in a sad way. You see the reports, and you never know to what extent to believe them. And I'll be the first to say this. I don't know to what extent to believe them. Are they letting people out of jail over the coronavirus concerns who are bad, bad people? From the sounds of it, they are letting some out. Yes, but at the same time, they will arrest a store owner because they gave a haircut in their shop with one person in the building. So it's like, okay, which one deserves to stay in jail? Which one deserves the... Yes, but... Right. And that is true. Many of those who have been let out have been rearrested. And it's sad. And again, I'm not saying that I think that's a widespread problem, but you do see it around, and many of those things, I believe, also can be politically motivated. You know what Bathsheba's telling Solomon here that kind of goes contrary to what we see? She's saying, look out for the little guy. Read it again. It says, "Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction." What does dumb mean here? Does it mean stupid? Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to use those words. What are we talking about? I'll say it this way, and I think all those are good. It's the person who can't speak for himself. When we think of a person who is dumb in this sense, we think of a person who does not have the ability to speak. But I think here we can take that one step further, and it's a person who does not have that ability to speak for themselves because they are not allowed to, or for what other reason. And Bathsheba's telling Solomon, you need to look out for that person. Why? Because it's specifically such as are appointed to destruction. I'm glad in this country that our legal system is set up so anybody gets representation. If you can't afford a lawyer, one will be appointed to you. A couple months ago, before all the outbreak started, I got called for jury duty. Everybody's favorite, right? Actually, it fell on a day 2 at school, so I didn't mind missing a day at school. I told my wife, nope, I'm going to this one. I'm just going to go ahead and take the day out of school. And this was the first time that I got called into a room and I sat there for like 4 hours as they asked questions of jurors and all this other stuff. Maybe it was only 3 hours. And it was just interesting. And you're looking, and here's the gentleman who's going to be put on trial for whatever it was. And you know what? Never heard him speak once. You know who I did hear speak? Some guy who was taking up his cause. I have no clue whether the guy was innocent, guilty, what he did. It's not for me to say. I didn't get chosen, thankfully. But you know what? He had somebody to speak for him. Now that's just, in some cases, sometimes it's just a public defender. She's telling Solomon, you're the king. You be the one who speaks up for that person. How many times for us, sorry, remind me not to do that, Brother Kim. All right. Do we take up for the little guy? I'm not saying we need to defend and justify when somebody's truly wrong, But how many times when somebody's being unjustly accused of something do we stand up and say, hey, you know what, just stop? Because again, what do we like to do? We love to hear that, don't we? We love to pass it on. Hey, you know what? And for as many people who say, well, that's just women. Women like to gossip. I'll tell you what, guys like to gossip too. That's right. You can laugh at that one. All right? We can be just as bad. We have a geometry crew that talks on Teams every morning. Our 4 geometry teachers at Centennial, we sit and talk for 45 minutes every morning, and some of it's just stress relief about, you know, here's my favorite one. This actually happened. What do you mean you can't access Teams? You messaged me on Teams. If you don't know what Microsoft Teams is, I'm not going to explain it. But the whole point is how can you tell me you don't know where it is or how to use it when you're on it right now? You know, that's like somebody riding up on a bicycle going, I don't know how to ride a bike. Seriously? Okay. Those are the things that we deal with. And we just, you know, we kind of talk about them. And sometimes we actually talk about how can we help? What can we do for some of these kids? You know, in verse 8, I'm sorry, that was verse 8. In verse 9, it goes one step further. It says, open thy mouth and judge righteously. What's righteous? What does it mean to judge righteously? Judge according to the law. Okay. Judge fairly. There's always a letter of the law and a spirit of the law, correct? And I got to admit, it's a hard balance sometimes. You know, there are certain people who deserve a little bit of grace and mercy, and there's certain people who don't. But in reality, don't you want to be treated fairly? This goes back again to what we said. If you've got money, I don't think you get treated fairly. You bribed to get your kid into college. You admitted how much you bribed to get your way into college. You had test scores. I give the ACT and SAT. I know how many things I have to sign. My teaching certificate's on the line every time I do one if something happens. I have incidents reports we have to fill out if there's anything that looks suspicious. Right? What do they get? 60 days in glam jail. You know what I'm talking about? You ask the average person if that happened to them, they'd be in jail for what, 2-3 years? And it ain't glam jail. She's telling Solomon, judge fairly, judge righteously, and notice again, plead the cause of the poor and needy. We're in a difficult time right now, are we not? We got an awful lot of people who are out of work and are going to soon be out of work at the rate things go. We're going to have a lot of poor and needy. And you realize that at the same time, that puts you in a situation sometimes where you might do something that you might not normally do. You know, the question is we can be part of the solution or we can sit here and, about it. What can we do to help? Now, catch this. Can I just throw this out? This isn't David saying this to Solomon. This is his mom. This is Bathsheba. That's some pretty good stuff, isn't it? Bathsheba is telling Solomon how you should be king. Where do you think she learned it from? It's a thought. I'm asking. I don't have an answer. Maybe her parents. Sure. We don't know who her parents were. Any other thoughts? Life experience? I'm going to throw it out. She was married to David for quite a while, wasn't she? Tell me, as a spouse, okay, the gentlemen in here are vastly outnumbered by women, but tell me as a spouse, we'll throw that out there, that there are times that you see things that your spouse does not, and you would like to smack them over the head. My wife has one because she was bugging me about it the entire way on the way to church. She gets mad at me because I don't wear my seatbelt all the time. Ooh, yeah, I know, thanks a lot. Yeah. How much, when you're standing off to the side, do you see? Just by being observant. Over the past 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity to watch some excellent teachers teach AP Physics online. as reviews for the AP test, which is coming up next Thursday. I have to tell you, I'm not really learning a lot of physics from them. But just by watching these gentlemen teach, I'm sitting here going, wow, the little nuances that you see, that you pick up, they don't even think about. But because I just step back and I watch, it's amazing what you can pick up when you just step back, be quiet, and watch. And there's a balance, because when you do that and you learn, Bathsheba could have said, now David, did you know this? I don't think Bathsheba was that way. Do I think that Bathsheba was smart enough and wise enough to be able to say, David, just some things I think you ought to know, maybe some things that, love to share with you. Just thought, it's always a way to do them. I think she was a pretty wise woman herself, don't you? We get this idea sometimes that, when you read the Bible, it's only for men, men are the only ones who are wise. You know what? Don't read it that way, Well, that's true, and there you go. What was said is that, as husband and wife, they're going to talk. They're going to talk all the time. There's that special relationship. We got Elena in the back. I'm going to be honest with you. God bless you for being a pastor's wife, because you hear stuff that, you talk about having a vault. I'm going to assume you have to have a vault stronger than just about anybody in this place except for your husband. And I'm sure there's things he does not tell you. And I'm not saying that he does. That wasn't my point. My point is, though, is that for him as a pastor, the one person he has to talk about his feelings and what's going on with him is you, and that can't go anywhere. I know that with my mother-in-law. I've always said, and you can take this for what you want, I think it's very difficult for a pastor's wife to have a best friend. I think that's a very dangerous thing because of what it leads to. Do you think Bathsheba had a best friend? I'm going to guess no. David had other wives. I'm sure they were close, but still, it's not the same thing. Just throwing it out there. So let's go to verse 10. Now, normally when you get to verse 10, and some of you guys are going, I see. You picked this because it's Mother's Day. No, I didn't. To be honest with you, it bothers me that it happened to fall that way. Because when is the one time that Proverbs 31 always gets pulled out in church? Mother's Day. Right? I had a pastor growing up, Pastor Rhodes. On Mother's Day, he would always preach at the husbands. On Father's Day, he would always preach at the wives. That's just the way it worked. Kind of fit. But you always hear this in terms of, I want to approach it from what I think it means when you go back to verse 3. Verse 3 says, give not thy strength unto a woman. What is she teaching Solomon? How do you make wise judgments? How do you judge fairly? How do you do it righteously? We talked about the strong drink. Don't involve yourself in things that will affect your judgment. But it also came down to people. And we get here to verse 10, and it says, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Now, I got 10 minutes to finish this up because I don't need to do Pastor's Mother's Day sermon for Sunday. I'm joking. That was a joke. It's on film, but it was a joke. Now, if that's what he preaches on, I'm going to laugh. I'm not going to lie. In society today, is virtue what we're looking for? Is that what is built up as what you want in a spouse? I'll give you the illustration, okay? I don't know if girls did this at college. I know guys did. You're sitting at a table in the Commons, you and a couple friends, and you just happen to be staring at the door, and in walks a girl. And this is what you do. Okay, guys, don't all look at once. But this girl just walked in. Now, first off, what's the adjective that goes in front of the word girl? This nice looking, this pretty girl. If you want to be, this babe walked in, and invariably, no matter how much you say don't all look at once. Every guy at the table goes, where? Here is what I have never heard. In all my years at college and all my years outside, I have never heard somebody do this. Dude, don't all turn around at once. But this virtuous woman just walked in the door. Everybody would be sitting there going, how about this one? Dude, man, this really smart girl just walked in. The only thing people are going to be doing is going, wait, where's my chemistry homework? That's all I got. What have we raised up in our society today? You think it's just us today. It isn't. Look all the way at the end. Verse, let me find it, because again, I should have marked it, but verse 30. Even back then, what was lifted up in society? Notice what it says. Favor is deceitful. You say, what's that? That's the popular one. You don't have to say pretty if you say, dude, a cheerleader just walked in. It's just implied. That and popular. Yes? The science and math geek is never popular. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I went through my entire freshman year being known as Rob's brother. I kind of went up to people and go, I have a name. Can use it once in a while. That's not a joke. That is honest truth. I was just Rob's brother. Drove me nuts. Popularity, notice the next one, and beauty is vain. But what's it say? You know what it says? It says, a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Now, you say, wow, you skipped over a lot of verses. I told you, this is not a Mother's Day sermon. Solomon's advice from Dad. Follow after the Lord with all your heart. Keep his commandments, keep his statutes. Now, did David do everything right? No, we've talked about that numerous times. But what made David a man after God's own heart is the fact that he always repented from his sin and he never turned away after false gods. Bathsheba's warning is, you better be careful about your judgments and you better watch out who you hang around. You guys all remember the numbers, right? How many wives did Solomon have? That's right, Bible trivia has come back on Wednesday night. How many wives did Solomon have? Nope. Thank you. 300 wives. How many cucumber-bines? Concubines. What? That was the 700, if I remember correct. It was 300 wives, 700 concubines. 1,000 women. Did you realize that if I really thought through it, do you know how long it would take for me to think about how many days do I have to go back to think that I have talked to 1,000 women? I don't know if I've talked to 1,000 different women in the past month. I don't know if Solomon could remember their name. I tell my kids on the first day of school, this would be so much easier if you guys were all numbers. I'm good at numbers. Names, I still tell the story over at Faith when, one year I couldn't keep Melanie's name straight, so I started calling her Molly. I called her Molly for 4 years. The freshman year, it wasn't a joke. I just couldn't get it right. Sophomore, junior, that was at graduation, I did it just for fun. I'm just not good with names. I can't imagine what Solomon had to do. But I want you to think about this, and we'll finish up with this thought, okay? As we're getting ready to start into the life of Solomon, which, by the way, there is not nearly as much written about Solomon as there is about David or Saul. I want you to think about it, that the two most important pieces of advice that he got from Dad and Mom, he let fall by the wayside. Did Solomon follow God with all his heart? No. Matter of fact, if you read, he turned after false gods. As a result, and I think we mentioned this during Bible trivia a week or two ago, that was the reason that the kingdom split. And you know that second piece of advice? What caused Solomon to turn after so many false gods? So many women that he had from various places. You know, I jokingly say, you know, Solomon's the wisest guy in the world, but how in the world would the wisest guy in the world ever think that 1,000 women was a good choice? I mean, you know, I'm just saying. I have a hard enough time, you know, with one. The joke with my wife is I'm going to trade her in on a pair of 25-year-olds. But somehow that doesn't work. Okay, whatever. Close enough. It's rounding. But I'm smart enough to realize I couldn't handle 2 women. So you know what? I'm content. All right? I love my wife. And hopefully my wife loves me. So. Except when I don't wear my seatbelt. So that's what I get. Some things to think about as we're going through and as we start into Solomon. Solomon got some excellent advice as he started out. Unfortunately, over 40 years, what happens is what happens to a lot of people. We think about that advice and we act on it here. I mean, it's not like Solomon turned around and the day after went, nope, going to go ahead and ignore everything you said. But as time goes on, what happens? Things change, right? Circumstances change. Mom and dad aren't here reminding you. Now it's on you. So now you make a decision. It's not the best decision, but you do what you can. And look where he ended up at the end. It's a thought for us that, you know, first off, we need to be giving wise advice. Secondly, we need to be following wise advice. Thoughts for this evening? Yes? Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for your love to us. We're grateful for the lessons we learn. We're grateful for wise women in the Bible like Bathsheba who have important things for us to learn from, Lord. We pray that you'd help us to judge rightly. Lord, that we would just make sure that we judge people correctly, and we think of those who are less fortunate, and we speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves, Lord. We just pray that you'd keep us safe with everything going on here in our community, in our state, in our country, and in our world, Lord. Pray that you'd help this virus to be cleared up quickly, to be taken care of, and allow things to get back to normal. We pray that you'd keep us and our families safe, Lord. I just pray that you'd bless things around here at the church. In Jesus' name, amen.